How are we doing, chat? Can I get a mic check from anyone in the chat, please? Cash is trash, ENG breakout. We'll take a look at that later. Check the mic, works the mic, I love it. Another couple seconds here and we'll get started, ladies and gentlemen. Mark going on a walk and listening, I respect it, staying fit. Vincent, how's it going, my man? All right, let's get started. Welcome everyone to the Tools of Trade live stream. I'm your host, Captain Cole, and I'm joined by my co-host Trip, also known as Crypto ISO on Crypto Twitter. We got a lot of interesting things to cover today, but first and foremost, would all of our incredible viewers do me a favor, make us look good for the YouTube algo, and smash that like button. I also want to take a quick second before we jump in to thank our sponsor Phemex, one of the only non-KYC derivative exchanges left in crypto. Trip and I have been trading there for the past several months and have really been enjoying the wide range of assets as well as liquidity. Since we trade there, so should you. So click the link in the description below to get up to $6,000 in a welcome bonus. All right, I'm done chilling. The last thing I'm going to say is nothing that we say here on Tools of the Trade is meant to be considered financial advice. We are not financial advisors. This information is for entertainment purposes only. All right, now that we got all that out of the way, Trip, how you doing, my man?
I'm good, man. It's good to be back on the charts. I was just away skiing in British Columbia, so it was a nice break from trading, but now I'm ready to get back into it. These markets are moving pretty fast.
They are, right? There's a lot going on. Echo bubble is well underway. I think we all know that. You know, it's been about 5 weeks now, basically up only since the new year. Plenty has happened. Plenty of alts have done multiples. Bitcoin has done several percentages off the yearly open. And the question is, what's next, right? What's next for the market? Are we going higher? Are we going lower? Are we going sideways? And I think that's what we're going to be talking a lot about today. Bitcoin, Ethereum, and then take some altcoin requests. So anyone in the chat who has some altcoin requests, feel free to drop them and we'll get to them later in the stream.
Yeah, it's I mean, we were just kind of talking about this before, but how these, Bitcoin and Ethereum are kind of trading in this range, you may call it, or this like upward trajectory of a range where there's people trying to short it and then, it keeps getting bought up. But this consolidation period of like 20 days on both of them has created a really interesting scenario for this fast altcoin rotation. And I'll be the first to admit I'm not the best person when determining where capital is going to flow next at the rate which it's doing. But I mean, I was looking at some of the artificial intelligence coins, and I probably ignored those when people told me about them. You can see it right now just from the announcement. What seems rather vague: Saudi Arabia and Sand, right? So then that immediately kicks off a rotation into coins like PYR, Mana. Sand goes up, right? To the other coins that just moved a ton, pull back. Like, yeah, I mean, look at that. Like that. So this game of hot potato and where's the hot ball of money going to go is a hard one, and for the people that can do it, like, kudos to you. But I think this is happening because we're going through somewhat of a consolidation or range period in Bitcoin and Ethereum. And so when does this alt rotation slow down? Do you get the move, whether that's up and down in BTC or ETH? That's kind of where my head is at. But you would look at these charts and say, like, there's probably a lot of longs in the market, but we just looked at Hyblock and there's like 3.6 billion in shorts in BTC right now. right? So it's still an interesting dynamic. I think there's a lot of disbelief still in that the pain trade is up. I mean, we heard from Powell today. I feel like they're just the market has made up its mind on pushing higher and the pain trade being higher. And it's going to be very data dependent, as we know, which they've said. But crypto has showed an insane amount of resiliency to any of these kind of macro market moving events. And I think we're just going to continue kind of grinding up, specifically looking at this delta on BTC right now. And then that's going to keep pushing the altcoins up in whichever is the hot topic of the week. So the game is find the hot topic of the week. I'm not sure what it is. I still really like Lido. I mean, Lido had a crazy move off $1.90, based on the V2 and Shanghai update. So there's a lot of things to talk about. I think it will be interesting to go through some of the requests from the chat. Help me get back into the markets more and see what's attractive. So yeah, I mean, look at that. Like, that's such a big short squeeze on that coin. Now you're sitting flush with longs. So like, I will be looking to buy a pullback on this. I'd love to see the 230s. I think that's a pretty interesting level. But yeah, let's get into it. So
yeah, let's actually hop to BTC first. I think at this point, right? Let's get the elephant in the room is everyone's looking at Bitcoin, right? And what is Bitcoin going to do next? And what does that mean for my precious altcoin bags that I'm desperately holding on to and hoping they go up? If you are max levered at this point in time after 5 straight weeks of up, it's probably not ideal just from a situational perspective. You want to have dry powder if, for example, we do make a move lower and we go back to retest some of these highs and make them into higher lows, 6% down, or maybe we go back to the key June, 12% down. You want to have some, spare powder, so to speak, to be able to capitalize on any dip. So I think being levered to the tits in this, boring chop solidation range for the past 3 weeks almost is probably not ideal. But at the same token, if you go back to the 2019 fractal, what happened there was that we just went sideways or up, and I can't stress that enough. There was like no lower lows in the last echo bubble, and again, data set of a sample size of 2, sure, but like there were no lower lows. Like this low never got violated, this low never got violated, this low never got violated. You really just put in sideways or up, and like that's why I can't stress enough. You go sideways, up, blow off top, right? So like I'm not claiming that we're at any sort of top or bottom or anything like that, but I do want to put into perspective that there is an immense amount of sideline capital. I feel like, Trip, you can also speak to the TradFi side of things that, a lot of this is also sidelined and looking to kind of allocate, especially as they see the run up. But, fast forward to today, we've been going up since January 1st. The yearly open has been a nice strong level of interest that was bought up from, where are we at, like 17 or 16.5, somewhere around there. Yeah, 16.6, just about. And we had a nice move up, consolidation up, consolidation. Now this consolidation is arguably longer than this. This was like a few days, not even a week. Here it's been almost 3 weeks. So as the rally continues, the legs up are going to be less intense the longer it kind of creates a base. But at the same token, some might see this as distribution, but in my mind, again, this is just that same effect of sideways. So like, I generally really don't think that this 2200, 22222, for those who know that I'm like a numerologist maxi, this level is probably not going to get swept, in my humble opinion, right? So like, famous last words, but that's what sideways means. Like, there are no lower lows. And like, one thing I like to harp on is market structure, right? So if you break this down into a line chart, you see highs and you see lows, and you see higher lows and you see higher highs. There are no lower lows in this regime. So like, you have to keep in mind that when you make higher highs and higher lows, whatever the case is, the point being is you're not going to violate these lows. And I think waiting to kind of allocate, if you're sidelined completely, is probably not the ideal kind of setup. But at this point in time, you do want to have dry powder, but in my mind, we're pretty bullish. I think we're going higher. This to me is just consolidation, whatever verbiage you want to use. But at the same token, if we look at something like ETH, for example, ETH's been driving a lot of narratives, and we talked about Lido just earlier. ETH hasn't been pulling the market up, But as we kind of consolidate higher, and this is almost like vertical accumulation, at this point in time, it really looks like the market wants higher. And like you said, Trip, the pain trade is most likely higher. So, you know, I really can't stress that, like, if you're sidelined, it would behoove you to allocate some, but at the same token, you don't want to get levered up to the tits here. There's a fine balance between taking spot positions and margin longing 25x here, thinking that you're going to hit a home run.
Yeah, and I talked to my friend that I have a bunch of friends who work at hedge funds, and he was even like, the pain trade is up, like outside of crypto, right? Because there's just still the sense of disbelief and complacency of that bear opinion that was so popular last year, but like there haven't really been any signs of slowing it so far this year. Until that actually comes into play, like specifically on the crypto side, like the liquidity aspect of things, like knowing that there's this many shorts in the market doesn't necessarily mean that I want to be like a seller of these assets at this point, right? And I think, one of the things for me is like using Ichimoku and being able to transition away from range-bound liquidity theory and understanding a trending market has been probably the best approach, which is kind of your bread and butter. So if you're looking at like maybe the 12-hour Kijun, if you were to like pull your chart up on ETH and BTC, where is that relative to price right now?
Yep. So let's see here. Take that.
Or just like how well respected like the Tenkan has been on the daily.
Yeah,
right?
again, like a lot of these things you could have just bought the Tenkan and held as like a place to add. But yeah, talk about the Kijun right now. It's curling up. So the Kijun, again, for those who don't know, it's like the 50% Fibonacci retracement. It's mean reversion in a trending market. So the 12-hour Kijun is kind of like the high time frame trend in effect. So as long as this Kijun and price doesn't close below it, the trend is up, in my opinion. So the Kijun on ETH right now is like just at 1500, kind of guarding this higher low that we have here, this low that we put in. So if we were to come back into it, I think we'd have almost like a double bottom scenario where we don't sweep this low and we kind of bottom here as it starts flattening out. But as you notice, like the yellow dots keep going up, but this is a healthy trend. So while price may have gotten away from the Kijun originally, and you had like almost like an oversold condition or overbought condition with the Ichimoku C clamp, now over the last couple of weeks, the Kijun has started trending up, and you see it's going to kind of start evening out at 1600 over the next 6 days. So all that tells me is that the trend, all the trending indicators that are technically lagging are starting to catch up to price, which means that it's more than likely that price has kind of had a healthy consolidation, almost like a reaccumulation phase rather than a distribution phase, expecting things to go down now, right? So the trending indicators are catching up to price action, and price action is forming a base here for the next leg up, in my opinion. So yeah, talking about the Kijun, it's been respected on the 12-hour. If you zoom back to the 6-hour, we had one tap here. We were down here below the 6-hour a couple times and have now flipped it again. Whenever I look at the 6-hour, that's kind of like the first trend I'm looking at here. We're below it on Bitcoin. But a lot of alts, like if we look at FTT, if we look at SYN, Aptos, Lido, they're all near around the 6-hour Kijun, which tells me that we're at the mean reversion aspect. So price is in balance, so to speak. So I do expect that we do get a next leg up on all these assets, and these like giant ranges that we've been in for 2-3 weeks are basically reaccumulation ranges from which we're going to continue moving higher.
Yeah, that's been my mindset. I mean, I did sell some Lido just because I was like, all right, like you're up on the trade. I have spot, but I also been trading the perps. I missed the like 190 bottom, so now it's like, all right, where are you going to get in? I think I had around like the 230s. There was also liquidity there. What's that you have on the daily Tenkan?
Yep.
So what, 240 or something like that?
Yeah, 237.
Yeah, so somewhere in that zone. But like the trend being so powerful on the way up is also like you kind of have to just be a bit more liberal with your orders and not so like, oh, I want this price, right? Because it just seems like the buyers are still very much in the market. So
Yeah, I like that you mentioned that though, because a lot of times newer traders, investors are always kind of like mentally blocked by the fact that, oh, I wanted to buy X asset at this price and now it's up 5-10% from there. I don't want to buy it. I'm going to wait for a pullback. And it gets you in this mindset of, trying to create or perceive value in an asset. What is cheap, what is expensive? The price is the price, right? Momentum is buying something that's pumped, expecting it to pump further. So if this entire rally has been flow driven, which I think we can all agree it hasn't really respected technical levels much. Technicals are irrelevant in the sense that, your support and resistance levels are just going to get blown right through depending on the, large nature of the buyer or the seller in question. So to say, Lido, for example, just to use that, since we were talking about that, it's up, what would you say, like 60% from the lows, 40% from the lows? Yeah,
Yeah.
40% from the lows.
Right. You could have bought 10%. Like in this market, you want to buy strength.
Exactly. Yep.
So it could have gone up 9%, and you said, oh, it's probably gone up too much. It went up another 30, right? So it's like it hit a really key level. Obviously, valuation has always been attractive to me on that one, but I'm sure we could go through a list of alts where they came back into key levels and bounced like really hard, and they're probably around the cloud levels. Is my guess.
Exactly. Yep. So that's the other thing, right? Like if you look at what has outperformed, and someone's asking in the chat, should we be wary of coins that didn't bounce back much after Powell's speech, like OP? Yeah, I think especially in this new regime or the current regime, you want a long strength, like Tripp said. You want to play the leaders, not the laggards, right? Like the already pumped or meme is a meme for a reason that people prefer to buy things that haven't pumped because they don't want to chase it. But when everything is flow driven, you actually do better thinking less and just aping more, just because what has already pumped will continue to pump, right? It's almost like it becomes Lindy in that sense.
Yeah, it's didn't OP move a lot anyways though before?
Yes, it did. It did.
So then it's the coins that moved a lot to the coin. Like I was on the phone with someone saying like gaming metaverse had only gone up 2x like off the bottom versus the AI that went up like 4x, right? So there's been some clear outperformers, but then you can also play the trade of like the catch-up trade, right? Like the gaming metaverse just is happening. Like PYR, someone wants me to look at this. Like let's look at this chart has always been to me that it's going to go to the range highs.
Yep.
Like
it looks like it's moving there slowly but surely.
Yeah, and so
it's a technical Kumo breakout too you got there.
Right, so you're just, I mean, price has respected these. Basically, it traded above the Kijun on January 9th.
Yep.
And it's been consistently holding that, and it
hasn't looked back.
Yeah, and sitting on the Tenkan. So it's like you had your double bottom here, right? Like we thought this was really good level, and now you're coming into like basically Fibonacci zones, but the retracement. But this to me just seems like if now it's going to go to the range highs off of like the rotation we're kind of seeing into the gaming metaverse, right? Like look at Mana there. Like what did these coins look like earlier today? That's my point of like this hot ball of money moving around. Even wild, like look at this. Like so these things are all playing catch up to me. And the people who are really diligent and know how to play catch up on certain coins, like where capital's going to move, they're going to be doing the best in this market. Like CHZ, we can look at this. Do we want to just get into requests at this point?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that was the first one with Chili's.
CHZ. Where is this? Is this on Binance? Yeah.
Yep.
Or futures or perp? Let's look at the spot.
You look at spot, I'll pull up Licks.
Oh yeah, this has liquidity. All right, so this is how I would probably look at CHC. I'd pull up a 3-day chart and see. I mean, this was clearly a pretty big demand level here. So where did price bounce?
Off like the 10-cent shelling point too, right?
Yeah. You had a pretty long consolidation here. This is the first time price actually came back into that zone. I don't know if there's any TD. No, nothing really there on that one. Then I would look at this high, probably, because like these are your swing points, right? This is 8 cents, call it that, to your almost 30 cents. And so now
30-cent range, 20-cent range.
Yeah, so now you're at the 38.2. So let's say, and this is, I guess, helpful for people understanding itchy, because this is your mean reversion trade of like 50% essentially.
Yep.
So you're going to get to that 20-cent zone, or maybe it's going to go to like 22 cents, right? This area right here is probably where you would run into resistance, but this seems like it's going higher. I don't know if there's anything specific within the CHZ kind of ecosystem or whatever anyone is talking about. Do you have the Hyblock lights up?
Yeah, Crow's saying there's some big announcement coming out tomorrow with Chili's, but just looking at the liquidity, straight up, right? You had a negative delta, you ripped through it. Now it's at 200 mil in longs. So can it revert? Yeah, but again, I do want to stress, in a trending environment like we have seen lately, you should be using liquidation levels as entry points, not necessarily using positive deltas as a way of looking like, oh, this might be overheated, it's going to pull back. Deltas can go very much positive or negatively skewed before they hit any sort of like tipping point that indicates reversal. So if I'm just looking at this from, you have 200 mil in longs, that's all fine and dandy, but like I'm looking at where's the liquidity in longs, where I might be looking at a long position entry point, right? So you have about a decent amount of liquidity here at what is this, like 16.2 cents, just about 16, a little higher, above 16 cents. And then the next thing,
daily tinking, but like I don't know if you're gonna get that. I mean, I'd probably look at the 6 hour or something, and then that's gonna give you that like 15.3, 15.4.
Yep, I see that.
Somewhere around there. But again, like it's also that market where you're buying strength, and people want this pullback, right? They want this pullback, but doesn't mean price has to do it. I would say, historically speaking, 200 plus million in longs though is probably going to be an interesting. What are we at? Where are we?
Well, we had 200, right? And we started pulling back from basically 212. 212 is when we actually started pulling back from 200 to 185 now, right? So we were at 17 cents just about, and we pulled back down 16 cents from that 200 mil position.
Yeah, let's see if there's a less granular approach to see if we can identify some bigger liquidity. Hold on. That's also the thing, right? Like this is announcement season. So you have to be very aware of why the announcements are coming out, how fast these coins are moving. They are exit pumps. These
are exactly.
I think exit liquidity, big. Right? So maybe you get this 15.7, right? You get this cluster right here, and then you'll probably have shorts come in and it'll trade up to those other levels. I just don't think you get like this stuff down here, which is like what everyone wants, this perfect.
Yeah, and when you do get back there, you probably don't want to be buying it there anyway, right?
Yeah, then it's losing momentum. And so then you have to kind of wait for these prices where you think buyers are going to reestablish their presence. But it seems like they're pretty much in the driver's seat right now. Sure, you can get shallow pullbacks, and I think like the shallow pullbacks, once you understand like that's what this market is about.
Yep. And we discussed that last stream, right? Like the shallow pullback is a 38.2 fib, and if you like, back test it yourself, take the trading view chart and use the 38.2 fib, you'll see that most of the pullbacks that were shallow that led to trend continuation were just about that 38.2 level. So if you're looking to bid, kind of have that in the back of your head rather than, oh, look at all this liquidity, it's ripe, it must be taken, right? That's just not the case.
Yeah. So your mid 15s maybe is what you get on CHC into that liquidity, but it's not going to surprise me if it just keeps going up to 20 cents and hasn't pulled back, even with the longs, just because the market makers, whatever the case is, especially an announcement coming, like that is when the price pushes fast and hard. And then maybe it's a sell the news event on whatever they're announcing.
Yeah, I do want to kind of touch on that. The whole news cycle thing is that like at this point in time, everybody who's been kind of holding back positive news is going to take these good market conditions, like we've seen Aptos, right, and a few other leaders or a few other strong performers use this time of favorable market conditions to release all the news they've had over the past 6 months of bear market, whatever it's been. So you have to keep in mind that a lot of times, because the actual altcoin market cap is not increasing at any meaningful rate, that means that there's no fresh retail money actually coming into the space. So because we know the market's still PVP, we see the market cap of the entire market's not actually going up in any meaningful way. What we do know is that all of these news-driven all this news-driven price action is being used, like you said, Trip, as exit pumps. So in my mind, if I'm trying to be a rotator, which again, I'm not the best at, but just thinking out loud here from a theoretical perspective, once the bag that I'm holding has kind of appreciated X amount of percent over a short period of time, and then we see some sort of news-driven reason to actually see why price has gone up, right? So it's like buy the rumor, sell the news. I think that holds true here, right? Like I think you're not necessarily shorting the news, but I think selling and taking profits from whatever coin that's had news is a wise move to then rotate into something that seems to be along that narrative, whether it's AI or metaverse, whatever the current hot ball of money is. But at the same token, you're taking this time to rotate into a sector or a coin that has not released news, right? So like I know people have been asking about the whole Synapse thing. They've had news and we've seen price appreciate. So as soon as I hear that Synapse releases some news about SynChain and their quote unquote DEX that they've been building, I don't know if that's even public, but whenever they release that news, that's the opportunity I'm looking for to be like, all right, price has gone up, 60% from where I bought it. Now we had another X amount percent pump from the news actually being released. That's when I take profits to start rotating into the next thing. So in that scenario, the way you're playing it is literally buying the rumor. If we're hearing that Chili's has some announcement, let's say they announce it tomorrow, it's a big announcement, price goes up X-fold. That's when I'm looking to take profits, not necessarily short, but take profits and rotate into the next thing. I think that's kind of the prudent way to continue playing this echo bubble as it relates to alts.
Yeah, I mean, someone wanted me to look at FXS. Like, obviously, liquid staking has been on my radar. I more played Lido than this, but like, back to kind of what we've spoken about since the beginning of the year in the stream is like, look, these things came out of 200-day consolidations. Yep. That's not something that you want to fade. So like just the mindset of riding the trend, like what we've talked about, you have range and expansion. So expansion to the upside on this coin above 750. And Amoeba was talking about this too. Like you could just take a fib. Okay, your 2.618 extensions like 1350, and look, you have like kind of this resistance area here. Maybe it pushes up to here, but you've done, this is a 90% range, and so if you were going to move 90% out of the range, you're kind of getting maybe to around this area. And like, look where price went. This is not something I necessarily would like be eager to long, even though that this is very much like a bullish chart. Can we look at liquidity on FXS? I forget.
I think we can. Let me take a quick peek.
Let me see.
No, not yet.
Oh, we can't.
They added it to Phemex, not Binance yet. Yeah.
Got it. So, not knowing too much about the valuation of this, I mean, I could probably look it up, but
just compare it to Lido, right?
Yeah.
What's the the leader in liquid staking derivatives? It's going to be Lido, not FXS. So like I do like FXS, don't get me wrong, but from that perspective, I want to long the leader of the market or the narrative rather than the laggard.
Yeah, but this was a high beta catch up play at one point.
Yeah,
Lido
absolutely.
moved and then this moved, right? And so Lido moved 20% today or something like that. FXS is up 5%, so maybe this plays catch up. But again, like if I'm looking strictly at a technical kind of chart and like how I look at ranges, expansion, Fibonacci extension, like this has moved a fair amount. Like this is 250% off the low. I haven't really looked at like 3-day, but yeah, can this go higher? Probably. But this is the point where we're at, where it's like
you start coming into some technical resistance, right? So like it's still flow driven, but you have to keep your eye out as it hits technical levels, right? Like that's the origin, or that's the first low it put in after being listed on Binance. You want to be cautious. Again, you're not trying to chase this up at this point.
Yeah. And if things pull back like a lot, those are the dips to buy. And the reason I have that mindset is just because like the trend is your friend until it's not, but also the moves that are happening right now in all these coins and BTC and ETH, like they're huge and fast. And for something to reverse, like the momentum to reverse, takes a lot of time. And so you will have a chance to even just trade up to a lower high, like on a lot of this stuff, on pullbacks. And so that's where my head is, on a lot of this stuff. And I would look at the Kijun and the Tenkan and all the itchy indicators and try to pair it with liquidity. But yeah, I'm not bearish, and I don't think there's a reason to be bearish yet. I would welcome dips to buy. I mean, look at some of the dips you got to buy on some of those coins and like how fast they reversed. That's telling you that there's buyers in the market. It's not really distribution.
Exactly. And I think that's a good point to kind of talk about now. Just looking at, I just want to take a quick sec to talk about market structure. If you look at a lot of these coins, right, and you look at like where they made higher lows and higher highs, and again, this is going to be kind of an elementary lesson on market structure, where you have a trend, right, and then it makes some sort of low, and then it makes a high, and then it makes a low that's a higher low. And where does that higher low tend to be? It tends to be where the previous high was, almost like an SR flip. So more often than not, in this regime, you're buying previous higher highs that are now potential higher lows. And you'll see the same thing happen. If you look at your favorite coins, the way they went up, more often than not, they had this sort of structure: higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low. Again, it's not perfect. It gets front run. But the whole point being is that if you're looking for entries on coins that kind of you're interested in, it would behoove you to kind of look at it from this market structure perspective. So, for example, someone asked us to look at Ocean. I think that was a.
Is that another AI coin? FET and Ocean.
FET and Ocean, I think, did have that narrative behind them. So just to kind of look at, what Ocean's done, as I'll even throw Ichimoku on there to make it clear. We have this trend. So if you zoom out, you see it clearly just straight up. But if you're looking at where price actually ended up making higher lows, it tends to be where you had previous highs. So this was a pivotal high, had almost like a double top. Price came very close to it and actually hit the 4-hour Kijun. So you had mean reversion, you had a previous higher high. This is where price made a higher low. Now, again, this higher low is close to this previous higher low, but again, it's not violating market structure. I think that's important to keep in mind, is in an uptrend, you have higher highs and higher lows, and you want to be a buyer at previous higher highs. Someone else asked about INJ. Let's take a peek here. Again, all these alts have done multiples from their lows. We're at the stage of the market where you can kind of throw a dart on almost anything and make money. And that only lasts for so long. So you do keep that in mind. But I do think it is important to kind of follow the narrative. So as of late, we've been talking about this AI narrative. I actually didn't play this one at all, if I can even be honest with myself. But at the same token, you look at coins that make fundamental sense to you. And if you have, quote unquote, inside information that an announcement is imminent, that's the kind of asset you want to be buying and waiting for, the news to break, and then you buy the rumor, sell the news in that sense.
Yeah, someone wanted me to look at AXS. So, like, I don't know how many times I can tell you, when you have these sustained red deltas, like, you don't really want to be bearish. And so I don't know what's going to be the driver of price or why that's going to basically clean out all the shorts, but like, this is like almost like a triple bottom here. You had a ton of longs come in here, right? Like green, 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 green. There's some shorts in here. And now you can start to see that you just basically cleared out 74 million in shorts, and you're starting to get very early signs of a delta flip. This is not something that I would be like, oh, I'm going to short this because we just cleared them all out. You can see kind of how they can spike up, but AXS, like, can this continue going up to $12? Yeah, sure. I mean, what's the percentage move it did off of the bottom, basically? Let's just call it here. All right, so it moved
130.
130%, right? So yes, it can keep going up, but like, I don't know, especially if you're trading these things on perps and you caught like a lot of these moves and you're trying to long like this, it can continue to go up. Yes. I just get cautious on stuff like that. But that whole consolidation that was happening here was like 1080, $10, right? It was building shorts. And so this small move took some shorts out. Can it take out these highs like up here? Maybe. But I like that went up 140%. Like that's something that you have to just take into account on some of these moves. Now, from like
Yeah.
an itchy standpoint, like it's holding the Tenkin, right? Can it come down to the Kijun? Like, is there anything on here on a breakout standpoint that makes it
Yeah,
look
so that's technically in the cloud. It's not done a full breakout yet. You don't have the bullish Kumo twist where the blue line goes above the L line on the right side of the cloud. So it's because that hasn't happened yet. I would be cautious to necessarily buy something that doesn't have a technical breakout and wait for it to actually happen. So I wouldn't be too bullish on it just yet. The 12-hour looks better, I will say, kind of holding that Kijun. But again, you want to look at assets that look extremely bullish. You're buying strength, you're playing into a narrative. Because again, guys, this is a hot ball of money rotation. No new money is coming into the space. We see all these assets going up multiple percents per day, per week, off the lows since January. You can really throw a dart at literally anything right now and make money. That's not the issue. That's kind of the market we're in right now. However, I will say a lot of times the optimal thing to do is try to find which assets are going to be, the fastest horse in the race. And that's where you kind of have to do a little bit of thinking. You can't be completely left curve. You have to have your eyes and ears peeled to crypto Twitter, Telegram groups, Discord groups to kind of see what's most talked about, because that's kind of going to be what leads you to the alpha, right? So like every coin's going up. We can all agree that. But I want to be in the coin that's going up the most. And the way to do that is to usually ape into whatever asset most people are talking about. And usually, I think Kanto was one I actually didn't trade that at all, but that continued going up for several weeks, even though it was being shilled constantly left and right, left and right. But the point is, because liquidity, there's no new liquidity entering the system, the liquidity is just rotating amongst different narratives. So if everyone's talking about Kanto, yeah, it'll eventually hit a shelling point where it pulls back. I think it did a couple of days ago, whatever it was. But at this point in time, you want to be allocated to the hot narrative, the hot ball of money, and you're trying to play that for as best as possible. So, when it comes to determining what asset, you throw a dart, anything goes up. If you have some sort of bag holding maximalism towards a certain asset, you're probably not going to do as well as you'd like, just because you have an affinity to hold trash, even if it's underperforming other assets. So the best way to play this echo bubble from the alt perspective is to just be honest with yourself. Do not bag hold, play a rotation. When you see 20, 30, 40% moves in a day, that's usually a good indication to kind of rotate some profits out. Yes, it can continue pumping, but at the same token, again, we've had this up-only market for a good 5 weeks now, and again, it won't last forever. So just be cautious and aggressively take profit the longer the trend continues. I think that's something that people are usually do ass backwards, is they tend to add risk as the trend continues later on rather than early. Like the whole meme that I always preach, bet big, bet early, and walk away, holds true, because a lot of people are too afraid to buy the initial reversal, right? And like they think it's a fake out, they don't believe it, they fade it. That's kind of what gives fuel to the breakout to begin with. But as the trend progresses, the early buyers who bought the lows start taking profits, right? And it hits a shelling point where both the early buyers and the late buyers who kind of get too scared and cautious kind of hit the exit switch and say, fuck it, I'm out of here. That's what you want to be cautious of. And that's why adding risk as the trend progresses is usually the wrong idea. You should be decreasing your risk, taking smaller bet sizes as the trend progresses. So, we're getting all these requests for different alts. We'll continue going through them, but keep in mind that, this only lasts for so long. I really can't stress enough that you want to have more, you want to be more aggressive taking profit the longer each kind of day, week progresses. What is that?
This is GRT. Okay. So here, like,
that's $1 billion longs, dude. For GR, for an altcoin. That's not even, I think, top 25.
This was like a Kyle Samani like multi-coin special, right? And it went up. Like, what was the reason this went up today? I'm not fully sure, But
maybe AI, Lord of the Flings. Yeah, it's all AI. It's all rotation. It's all bullshit narratives,
maybe
right?
it's you're getting,
You're getting dumped on by your favorite VC. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
This is the exit pump. If you're buying here, you're doing it wrong.
This is like kind of where your resistance is, I would say. So in
Yep.
the 30, so do I think it will probably go here because people are going to probably short it? Yeah. Are there a ton of longs in it that I would not, I can't bring myself to actually long a coin like this at this point in time?
Yeah, that delta is just screaming to me. I wouldn't feel too comfortable longing that myself, to be completely frank.
800 million in longs. So what? Maybe you do the, maybe it's like you're pulling up like the hourly and looking at those cloud levels because I'm sure it
Yeah,
hasn't
Kijun,
done
yeah.
anything on the Tenkin wise. Like it
Nope.
hasn't. Look at this. It's just like been steadily climbing up this. So if it came down to here, like, or it's just like holding this trend. I guess you could hourly Kijun. But yeah, this is not something that I would actually want to long right now. So people were asking these things about these coins, like if you guys caught these moves, amazing. Take profits on the way up because the inefficiencies of these moves on the chart are just they're vertical. And so
Yeah, when they
last
do
thing
pull
you want
back,
to do
it's just
is
going to be an absolute cascade, and you don't want to be caught with your pants down, right? And that's the other thing. If you're trading a lot of these on margin with derivatives, you want to be aggressive in setting trailing stops or just hard stops at different higher lows, and kind of respecting market structure. I know a lot of times people are afraid to set stops at previous higher lows. What if I get scam wicked? Well, if we get a scam wick, it's probably going to be a little bit more than a scam wick, and it's going to lead to a cascade. So I think setting stops in accordance to market structure probably has your best interest in mind. So for example, Cash asked about ENG, or not ING, sorry. So just looking at that one, right? It had a nice move off from, what was it, 25 cents to 50 cents. So basically doubled off the lows here. And this is like the third drive, and people are asking, we're talking about market structure. Well, this was a previous higher high. So if this coin ends up closing the daily kind of above this previous high, you'd be looking at this level or potentially these levels to kind of get in for a pullback, and that kind of lines up with the Tenkin. So a lot of times you're trying to respect market structure, but again, if we zoom out, this is what vertical accumulation looks like, right? So ENG is probably one of the better ones of the charts that I've actually looked at today. But at the same token, you have this Kumo breakout, you have this technical breakout, you zoom out and you see these lower high resistances that are going to probably get ran. So this is one that I would potentially be looking at. And again, if you zoom out on a lot of these, the mean reversion is definitely higher. This has a 3-day edge to edge to $1.10 potentially, but still too early, still doesn't get this cross for several days. So I wouldn't be too eager to kind of jump into alts without a plan, especially if you're on derivatives. But at the same token, keep in mind that a lot of these alts may just continue going up, right? So it's a fine balance of balancing your own greed and euphoria with some sensible portfolio management, let's call it.
this person said, how do you guys take profits? Typically like around technical levels, Fibonacci's, scaling out on the way up of like some spot positions. Perps is very much for me like
you have
I
to
like to get into those trades when I think the market's going to move fast. One, just from funding at like dealing with funding, and two is that's what this market is right now. I don't really like sitting in the consolidation perp trade, to be honest.
No, that's especially right now. That's the last place you want to be. Someone asked about TRB, if that is a sign of strength. Yeah, I mean, just look at this, right? You had like this vertical accumulation into this Maribozu candle. So that's a good sign of kind of looking at an asset that is showing strength and seeing how high it can go, right? You had this huge wick here. So I'd expect this wick probably to fill, right? 30 cents or $30, sorry. So from 19 to 30 cents, like a 50% move. But from an Ichimoku perspective, this wick kind of messed it up. But again, it's like a 50% move here. So you do want to be longing strength. If you're using derivative positions, I think keeping your stops relatively tight in the sense that they respect market structure. So for example, Mark, you asked, how would you take profits solely on principal or on holding till Valhalla? So again, if I had bought TRB and I was in this, I'd set stops below this vertical accumulation. If price went below 1750, I'd probably get the fuck out because this has gone up several percentages from the lows. That would violate, bullish market structure. I wouldn't want to sit in this accumulation phase. At the same token, if I'm looking to get into a derivative position on this, I would be using this level, this higher low, as my invalidation because price has no business coming back below this vertical accumulation if it's going to continue moving up.
Yeah, that's a big one. It's like if you think you know the trend and you're trusting it, then like the invalidation on these up moves and like the continuation of the trend has been pretty good. Like there haven't been that many like weird stop runs.
Yeah. And there shouldn't be because again, it's flow driven. There's natural buyers in the market and they continue bidding up the assets that they're interested in. So the shakeout scam wicks tend to happen in distribution ranges. So I don't think we're there just yet.
Yeah, I mean we still have like highs on Ethereum at 1787, and then you have highs. It looks like vertical accumulation up.
Yeah, it's literally the definition of vertical accumulation.
So is that the cloud?
Yep, this is the 2-day cloud at 2000. That's a big level for me. This evens out at 2200. The 3-day just became active the other day. And that's probably as high as I'm aiming, right? So for the echo bubble target, 2200, this right here, this flat cloud area, I'd expect to happen at some point this quarter before the end of March. Yeah, something like that. So again, vertical accumulation, goes like that, and then eventually you get a leg up. I don't know, Trip, is there anything macro-wise we're looking at in February that could potentially lead to the macro leg up? Is that like CPI and on Valentine's Day probably? What are your thoughts about that?
I think it's the 13th.
13th? Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like there's just macro stuff all the time at this. Yeah, it is Valentine's Day though. Core inflation. That's Tuesday. Usually it's the 13th, I thought. Yeah, so there's stuff coming up. I mean, you're going to hear from Fed officials constantly. Jobless numbers are obviously important because that's something that Powell has talked about at length. But I think like the market itself is just in like push forward mode right now.
Absolutely.
And a lot of the stuff that we looked at aggressively last year, where price would react in a lot different manner, I think, has like changed. Where the market is essentially calling like the Fed's bluff on a lot of stuff. And until that changes or where the sentiment around that changes, I'm not sure, but it's like just follow the trend here in crypto. Like it's been an incredibly good asset to trade since the beginning of the year.
Yep. I think just looking at Bitcoin here, this edge to edge isn't active yet, but it will be in a day and 2 hours. So yeah, in a day, tomorrow's daily close, it'll be active. And this is again to 31,800. So, this echo bubble is well underway. We are further in than we are earlier in the sense that, you're not early to the quote unquote trend, especially with altcoins. I have noticed that like the altcoin rotation has been much more aggressive and greedier compared to last cycle's echo bubble, where altcoins really underperformed Bitcoin and Ethereum, but there's so much greed left in the market that a lot of these rotations are happening quicker and faster, in my opinion. So you have the AI narrative, it plays out immediately after that. Okay, Sands just pumped today. Are we going back to the metaverse play? The duration of the narrative is shortening in my mind. And I've always kind of thought that this whole echo bubble is going to be much shorter in both duration and scope. So again, Trip, we talked about it, I think like in January or even in December, is this the base for the echo bubble rally? And we were thinking no, originally, because the base has been only, 60 days. So because the base was shorter and smaller, I'm not expecting this. Like I know you talked about last echo bubble, it went to the 61.8 fib. But again, from here, from the lows to the top, I think the 38.2 fib makes more sense than the 61.8, right? Like I'm not expecting the 50Ks here. If we get it, holy shit, I will be surprised. But in my mind, I would err on the side of caution. I think there are more macro driven lows to be had. I don't know enough about macro to pretend I can LARP at that. But at the same token, all I know is that we've been up only since the start of the year. It's been 5 weeks. Let's say we get another 3 to 6 weeks of this, and I think that's being generous. I think we can probably get another 3 weeks till the end of this month. I do think that if you've made significant money over the last 5 weeks, you should be at least taking some of that off the table and be ready to have dry powder. Again, it might be allocating higher than current prices today, but you never know, and you always better err on the side of caution in an environment that's still PvP. If the total market cap of alts goes up in a very meaningful way, I'll rethink that stance. But my impression is that this is still all very PvP, and a lot of the participants are just trying to rotate and dump on one another.
Yeah, there's not a ton of new capital coming in, because I still think crypto has this, from the normie investor or the outside investor, right? It's still like, oh, it's a scam like type situation, right?
Yep.
So we'll continue to play the game with all the people in here, and maybe there's small number of new participants, but the use case and the utility of it is still very much up in the air for, I think, like the rest of the world. So the investability of it is somewhat, everyone's skeptical of it, right? I mean, everyone got burned really hard, right? So these are exit pumps on things.
Essentially, for better or worse, absolutely.
Yeah, but I'm still very bullish on NFTs.
Yeah, someone asked about NFT bull run. What are we thinking there, Trip? This summer? Sooner? Later?
I think when the coins are done running, the NFTs
catch the beta.
A serious bid. Yeah. And the utility around that seems more relatable to the normie audience. Like, this has been my thesis since the spring, April. Obviously, people know I own a lot of the pandas. And the things they're doing and the things that the penguins seem to have up their sleeve make it more, I would say, just like if there was a utility around something that outside of these tokens, like NFTs to me make more sense. So it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds. I think it's a much longer term play. But as we know in like prior cycles, the way Ethereum goes up, people sell their NFTs. There are some NFTs that are going up with Ethereum, which is really great to see. And it's still that game of rotation, coins to NFTs and whatnot. And during sideways prices, they tend to do well, right? Because you have price stability of the asset that it's priced in. So yeah, maybe that comes Q2. Maybe I've always kind of thought Q1 was going to be super bullish. Is it?
You talked about that January effect at the beginning of this year, which has obviously played out really nicely.
Yeah, now we're into February, and so it's like CPI is going to be a big one. So that's a week, right? So can things run for another week, and then maybe there's some hesitation around the print, like we always see. Yeah, but it still seems pretty strong right now. And Powell today was like very kind of jovial and relaxed in that interview. It didn't seem like there was like a huge sense of worry on his mind, but he obviously can't come off super dovish. But I'm gonna go back and rewatch it. But it seemed like the market wants to push higher still, so I'm not gonna fight it.
Yeah, I think at this point, if you're looking at what to do, I think a lot of times you're better off at this stage sitting in spot with a lot of these alt plays, and then, like you said, Trip, only when you see what you believe are the conditions for continuation to really lever up, quote unquote, and use tighten validations on some derivatives changes. So like a lot of my positioning right now is spot as well. I think I've taken like 3 or 4 derivatives trades besides like the 2 major ones in Bitcoin and ETH that I'm holding. I've traded Aptos and STG, but at this point in time, like, again, like I'm holding a fuck ton of FTT. I think that has a giant echo bubble in it, right? A lot of these alts are just like consolidating and they're waiting for Bitcoin to make its move. So if you believe Bitcoin's going higher, it would behoove you to position in some of these alts and spot plays. But at the same token, if you're sitting in margin, you have to keep in mind there's an opportunity cost of holding a lot of this and understanding that sitting in a margin trade just because it seems like the right way to play it is usually not, because, the famous GCR once said, the liquidations of retail traders from impatient retail traders who require leverage to wealthy, patient spot buyers who do not require leverage. So leverage tends to be a tool for the impoverished to get more impoverished, and for the wealthy spot buyers to kind of pick up the pieces. So if you're trading derivatives, just be careful in the sense that play it in and out. Don't get married to your bags. If you have a thesis around why you're holding a certain altcoin, you're better off playing it in spot.
What's FGT up to? I haven't looked at that one.
It is at 2056.
How long is it consolidated in this?
It's been a minute, and I'm really expecting that God candle very soon. So it's been about almost a month, 3 weeks, 23 days. It looks like a descending triangle, but like my gut tells me that descending triangles break up in bull markets, echo bubbles, whatever. So $13 is still my target that I'm looking at, and I know people hate this coin, but there is serious talks about the FTX creditors restarting the exchange. So I will not be surprised if this ends up going back to Caroline's 22 and fuck off bid over the next couple months, couple weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it had moved initially off the talk around it, and then there was that second pump it had, and now it's just consolidating basically.
Yep, essentially. And it's holding the Kijun, which is the mean reversion, right? And it just closed in the cloud yesterday. It's gonna have another close in the cloud today. Technically, from a Ichimoku perspective, if you're playing the edge to edge, the stop loss goes below the cloud. So let's call it 133, 130. The target's the top of the cloud, $13. I mean, you guys can see it's a pretty heinous risk reward profile. Well, again, it might not play out this way, but at the same token, there is reason to believe that scams pump the hardest, and this coin is no different.
What's the weekly look like?
I mean, if it's going for the tank, and it just looks like it just fell off a cliff, and this is just so yeah, it had this big move on the weekly, and then this just looks like consolidation. If you believe that consolidation is distribution, you're bearish, but I believe consolidation after a big breakout is just consolidation before trend continuation up. So I don't think FTT has played out its echo fully. And I would not be surprised to see our favorite Shoebill Stork tweet about it in the near future.
That guy, he's so classic. All right, is there any deadlines or dates that are around the?
I think today, actually, I don't know if anyone knows, the SBF bail hearing was supposed to, or bail information was supposed to come out today, who the two individuals were who provided the $250 million bail for SBF. So I'm curious actually about that. I think that was supposed to be today, if I'm not mistaken.
Might have to take a look at that one again.
Michael asking, how big is my FTT bag? Like 100K plus in spot? Yes, it is over 100K plus in spot, I will say. I have high conviction in this scam of a token.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting one to watch. That's when it comes out, it's like, see ya.
Yeah, there's just no hitching a ride. So again, I think a lot of times, especially with some of these alts, like not Lido or some other bigger caps, but a lot of the smaller micro caps. And I think someone asked us earlier, how do you take profits on micro caps? Treat them like call options. This isn't something you should be betting the house on. These are plays where if it literally went negative 99 from your initial investment in the spot play, you would be okay, right? So I think you should be allocating knowing full well that it could very literally have a negative 50% candle the next day and mentally be okay with that. So that is the way you should be sizing microcap plays. Other mid caps like Lido and others, Sin and Aptos, whatever, Solana, just naming names, Litecoin, etc. Those are ones you can allocate to and have like a mental stop loss if you're playing spot. But again, as Trip said, if you're playing derivatives, you really have to have a plan to get in, get out, and you're trying to ride the momentum.
Someone asked about VET. So a lot of the times when I just look at these charts, I'm like, these are all ripe highs to be taken, and that's kind of what BTC and ETH have been doing, right? So like that next high we were talking about was like 1787, and then it was 2000. Like they've just been taking out highs on the way up until you get to like a ridiculous resistance level.
Yeah, it's usually some like huge multi-month resistance SR level, which just adds up, right?
Like this is a range high,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So then this here, back to the Tenkin and the trending aspect of this price, this looks like it's going to continue up probably to maybe the range high. I mean, it's going to run into resistance here. Yeah, probably, but it could run it and get really close to like this zone. And then if you're breaking above this, like, well, this downwick, like this area. So I don't think price just stops on these things here. Like it's on a mission to take out highs, and it's all range bound. And like, how long has this been consolidating? Let's just like, or in this area, call it that.
9 months.
270 days. Like it's a pretty long time. So don't fade those things. Am I buying it right here? I haven't looked at this coin. This is the tough part of this thing. Is like, because you can just say to yourself, it's up 150% already. And then is VET on the liquidity? Yeah, it is. What is that?
It should be, yeah.
Isn't this an old coin?
It is an old coin, a VeChain from 2017. I think I almost did the pre-sale there. I ended up passing on it.
Yeah, so you got 178 longs versus 26 shorts. And again, we've seen all these delta flips. My best advice to you guys right now is don't buy the green deltas. Like that's always been my advice. Like, can it go higher? Yes. But like maybe be patient and wait for it to build a red delta again and match it up with like one of the trending.
Yeah, I think the edge in that is to say that you should be looking at coins that have red deltas because they're more likely to see a move to the upside in the short term. So bouncing off that, Nick is asking about Mask. And that, just from an Ichimoku perspective, it had a nice breakout. It almost looks like it has a little, what do you call it? What do you call it? Adam and Eve bottom. That's what I was looking for. Adam, Eve. And then, you're getting maybe even a cup and handle, whatever meme pattern you want to call it. I think this looks good for continuation. And if I throw on Hyblock.
Oh, it's got a red delta.
It has a red delta, which just tells me that this is an asset that probably is going to see a move to the upside in the short term.
Yeah, look at the triple bottom formation of every other alt that we just looked at that ripped stupid hard vertically. And then you look at this Mask on the liquidity map.
Yeah, I mean, just look at this 3-tap, whatever you want to call it. So let's just thank you, Nick. This looks like something I actually might want to trade in the short term. Where's that? There it is. So for example, let's just pretend I'm market buying because I'm an ape. I don't want to think about it. Putting my stop probably below 4. Let's just call it 4. So let's be conservative here. And then what am I aiming for? Well, I'm aiming for this range high here at $6. But if I zoom out, can we get a little more bullish? Yeah, again, this is a lower high here, and then you come into some macro resistance here. Where's that? So something like that. Yeah, so again, what's this lower high? 750. I think you can run that from here. Is this absurd? Maybe to some, but in my mind, this is actually what I'd be looking at. Red delta, cup and handle meme formation, putting a stop below this low here at $4, and you're playing for 750. Thank you, Nick. This is something I actually might end up taking on today's daily close. For no other reason other than the chart looks good. There's a red delta that fits my bias, and like you said, like that triple bottom on the medium time frames. Good looks, bro. That looks nice, actually.
So that coin makes sense to me from a long standpoint as a catch-up trade. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I have no idea. I think this is the Elon one. He's saying the Elon play.
The Twitter one?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you could get it like, where's the here? Yeah, this is a pretty clear triple bottom, lower time frame on an hourly chart. And the liquidity goes up to 560. We know that. So even if you were going to go for these highs, like 540, then I mean, you entered here, I guess you put your stop there and you're trading to 540. Dude, that's a pretty sick trade. Like you shouldn't go below these
that triple bottom. Yeah, let's call it $4 if you want to give it like that scam wick.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah, essentially.
You're still getting a pretty nice risk reward on that. And if you're, you know, what you just looked at, zooming out here, I guess, how does this classify for being like in the cloud on an edge?
Oh yeah, I didn't even look at the edge. Holy shit. On the 3-day, yeah, I mean that looks, that's as you actually just had, if you look at the Tenkan, it just crossed over on that 3-day close on January 31st. So this is an active edge to edge now.
Yeah,
because
really, actually, on the daily, you probably shouldn't violate the Tenkan, that 4.
Yeah, I'm almost like here to say like market buy it. Not financial advice, obviously, but like I see this chart and I get excited, right? Because there's I want to make a point of this. So one being is, you know, an edge to edge trade. If you had it here, you had the cross, but what ended up happening? See this little line over here, this little Chiku span? That is a lagging span. That's price plotted back 30 periods. So while price ended up actually hitting it, meaning we were ranging, it's now outside of that. So price is once again trending. If this Chiku span is above price in relation to where price is right here, price is actually trending. So because it's trending, and because right here on this January 31st close, we got this TK crossover, the blue line above the yellow line, that activates the edge to edge. And look at where this edge is right here, 760. So like, yeah, I brought that 7.5 level out of my ass, but 7.6, that's literally the technical target of how you'd play this edge to edge. So from that perspective, that looks beautiful. From a positioning perspective with Ichimoku, the stop loss goes below the cloud or below the Kijun technically. So yeah, you could go below 344, but we just talked about, we looked at it on low time frame. It shouldn't go below that triple bottom we just discussed. So this is one of those situations where you don't get a pull back to the Tenkan. This just keeps moving up, hopefully, right? And you're playing this low time frame move back to like 750. So yeah, 550 looks good, but I think 750 is actually a likely target if we get the move that I'm expecting on Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Yeah, good looks, whoever brought this up, because this is like
nice.
Primary example of what we're talking about. We're not trying to buy the ones that ripped. We're looking for the laggard that has a nice profile. And this, like a lot of the fractals are the triple bottom and then rips. So you can also see on Hyblock that there's not really too many longs directly below price.
Yep, 32 to 5, nice ratio.
They're not a ton of shorts like really close to price, but in order for liquidity to get hit on a 40 million and short liquidation run, like where the price goes ballistic, that's the impulsive nature where you're going to start to take out a lot of the much higher up shorts, because there's not really any liquidity to grab below. There's like 420, and like 415, but again, like it seems like this is destined for higher at this point.
Exactly.
I haven't looked at any of the funding rates on this. That would be interesting to see. Mask. I wonder if you can.
If you're getting paid to long mask, what I would have thought.
The only ones that it's pretty neutral. OKEX seems to always have positive funding rates for some reason.
Well, that's because there's just a bunch of Asian apes. Just keep market smashing that green button.
Yeah. So good looks.
Yeah, I think that's the best setup we've seen from the stream today. Yeah, but everyone's asking a few different tickers some that we were in over, and I think again one thing to kind of harp on is you can throw a dart at any altcoin right now and make money. That's the environment that we're in. It doesn't last forever. So you need to be cognizant that any money that you're making now, you should be much more aggressive in taking profit, as it's been 5 weeks since its start of up only, right? Eventually we'll get a pullback of some sort. It might be tomorrow, it might be in 3 weeks, it might be in 6 weeks, or whoever knows how many weeks. Eventually you get one, but by that time, it'll likely be at a price level higher than you originally wanted to buy at. On Bitcoin and Ethereum, not your alts. I think alts are much more susceptible to those negative 20, 30% candles that we all hate to see, just because there's still a good amount of greed in the market that is trying to rotate from asset to asset, from narrative to narrative. So just keep that in mind as we move forward.
Yeah, agreed. Notice a lot like around the daily closes, you'll get dips too, which have been pretty good to buy.
Yes, that's actually a very good point, is that a lot of times the first couple hours of price action of the new daily session tends to be the low for the rest of the daily candle itself. So buying that initial dip tends to be positive EV. Have you
Yeah.
looked at sushi at all though, Trip? That's the one thing I wanted to, before we ended here. I was
Um,
just checking the chart here. Let me share this real quick.
I was trying to dial in my mask orders.
No, I literally was messaging Nick saying I'm going to market buy it as soon as the stream's over. But the sushi looks really good here, just from
Held the Tenkin on the
yep, held the
6 hour
Tenkin.
like $1.41, clearly
It looks like
defended.
it flipped this, higher high. This is where it's trying to put in a higher low. We don't have the Kumo breakout yet here, but I do feel like it's one of our favorite coins to trade just from a liquidity perspective. I'd be curious to see if there's
Oh
anything
yeah,
in the
let's see what
works.
the liquidity looks like. That's also the thing. Like, it's hard to keep up. Like, I try to have a couple ideas in my mind and just master those, but I haven't looked at sushi in a bit. But we used to trade this thing up and down all the time. Yeah, so liquidity wise, I mean, this thing is ripe with shorts. 42
Oh, that's
million.
a red delta. Look at that, dude. Yeah. Come
Yeah.
on.
Same with it's got the similar like kind of, okay, we tried to break the lows here. Can it come down to like $1.48 maybe, somewhere around there, or maybe 46? But no reason to think that this isn't just going to be pushing higher, because as we've seen, like every coin that's on a mission to wreck shorts,
That's
you'll at least get the flip of the delta.
exactly.
So there's 42 million in shorts that can be taken out, and structurally,
Look at the 12 hour. It looks a little cleaner.
it's held the Tenkin pretty well, huh? 1 second. Oh, this one right here?
Yeah. See how I had that Tenkin flip, which was the previous high. And if you look to the left, I had that previous high SR flip as well.
Yeah. So you know that like these highs are probably in jeopardy based on liquidity. So
Yep.
does it run these, can we run back up to like even like $1.80? Yeah. Seems very feasible.
Yeah,
Maybe
that's
$2.
what I was gonna say $2 is actually what I'd be pushing for. And I think we should probably have Jared on the stream at some point this month to kind of discuss the future of sushi. I feel like that'd be a interesting talk episode for everybody.
Yeah, Jared's a good guy. He's gone through some interesting times in crypto.
Molded by trial by fire, so to speak.
With the rumors and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, there's, you have Cumberland and you have Golden Tree basically backing them. Avi being one of the guys helping spearhead the operation. It's a turnaround story, right? I think people just view it as like it's got a lot of baggage, because it does, but there is value in the coin. And so at that point, you're kind of betting on the people who are going to help turn it around. And so I've always thought it was an interesting one to be a spot holder of, like for the year, to see how they can kind of figure out.
Comeback.
Yeah, and you have some of the Dex narrative playing into it. You have some interesting things going on. I know it's gone through a couple rough patches with the proposals that have come out and whatnot. But if you just strip away all that and you're not going to trade on fundamentals or whatever, let's just trade liquidity. And so this is a sustained red delta of 40 million in shorts, basically. These are going to get these people are going to get smoked, is what I would think.
And I do want to take a second, because people, we do harp that, in a trend-based environment, liquidity theory doesn't work as well. But at the same token, liquidity theory revolves around the positioning of market participants. So while liquidation levels may not get run just because they're one-sided, you can still use a lot of the tools Hyblock offers to actually learn the positioning of the market in front of you and use that to gain an edge. So again, what we kind of talked about today on today's stream was looking at coins that had a red delta, not necessarily the liquidation levels for those coins, but we're just looking at the deltas. Anything that had a sustained red delta is much more likely to rip to the upside, just because we see short positioning coming in hot, and that's usually where the market likes to test those positions. So that's just one thing I want you guys to keep in mind moving forward. as we continue this trend-based behavior, you want to be looking to use Hyblock in a way that fits the current trending system. So looking at funding rates and looking at assets that have negative deltas may provide a slight edge in positioning in those assets.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
I think that about wraps everything up. Any last parting words there, Chip?
Not really. I do like these Q&A things because it makes us check ourselves, but also like we can't look at every single coin. So there's some interesting ones that we talked about. Obviously, Mask looks pretty interesting on the liquidity side, and so does Sushi. So it'll be fun to review some of these trades next Tuesday, and see how they panned out.
Absolutely. All right, that about wraps up today's episode. We shared a lot of interesting things today. So before we go, I gotta one more time thank our sponsor Phemex. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to smash that like button, guys. It means a lot for us. It helps us with the YouTube algo, and you'll get notified whenever we go live if you subscribe. So thanks again, everyone who tuned in today, and we'll see you next week. Captain Cole signing out.